Stick with me on this one. One of my obsessions with Asian horror cinema are movies that are either set in or use a cinema as an important part of their story. I've gone through collections and lists, asked online, and found as many movies as I could that suit this rather narrow category. So what you'll find in this video are a mix of horror movies from a variety of countries, presented to you in alphabetical order. I'm the Artie Dans from We Love Asian Horror at Asian Film Fans, and welcome to Admit None, Asian horror movies set in a cinema. And alphabetically, we start with this title from China. Easily the coolest title for a movie that's on this list is this Chinese horror thriller called Admission by Guts. And that has a double meaning. You're either really brave to watch the film, or the price of seeing this film will cost you your life. Cool title aside, what we have here is an interesting, if typically formulaic, Chinese horror movie about 8 seemingly unrelated people who are personally invited to an exclusive midnight screening of a horror film. The cast of characters is quite eclectic. We have a blind woman and her partner who narrates everything happening on screen to her, a chubby snack-loving girl who hardly gets any screen time, and a video pirate who's there to bootleg the film and upload it to the internet. The movie they're there to watch is never really explained to us. It seems to be an arty horror film that stars the audience and shows them scenes of how they'll die. It's a bit confusing, makes very little sense, and is never explained, and clearly our cast find it boring as they frequently leave the screening of the film for large swaths of time. As you'll see with other examples in this video, the Chinese love to make horror movies in cinemas, but thanks to their strict horror movie regulations, they're not usually any good. Except strangely this one. While it's not the best movie on the list, it's one of the more interesting ones and definitely has an ending you don't see coming, even if it's typically Chinese. Is it gory? No, not at all. There are a few death scenes, but as you see later in the film, they're not really death scenes either. Have I confused you? If so, it's probably best you watch this movie yourself. The first of a few Thai films in this video, this one is a typical anthology film. So that means that only one of 3 short stories in this movie is set in a cinema. Of the 3 stories, one about a brother and sister who get revenge on a woman who destroyed their parents' marriage, the second about a first date in a haunted cinema, and the final tale about 2 vapid influencers who spend a month in a haunted house. This is the second best of the lot. A couple meet for their first ever date at a cinema complex where one of the halls is permanently closed due to it being haunted. It's a rather awkward first date as the guy is older than he first appeared to be, and she decides she might as well stick around to see how the date goes. She suggests they leave their movie and sneak into the closed haunted hall so they can make out. He reluctantly agrees, but only after he realizes he might get a chance to see her boobs. After they sneak into the hall, they can see there's a movie playing on the screen. According to the backstory, the cinema operators keep playing back-to-back movies in the hall in order to please the spirits within. However, these 2 keep disturbing the ghosts. He gets spooked out and wants to leave, but she drops her phone. When she goes back to retrieve it, she gets stuck into the cinema realm, unable to escape. It's an interesting story, but it's unfortunately lacking in a few details that would flesh out the lore a little bit more. If there was any anthology tale that was screaming out for a full-length version, it would be this title. On the first story in this title. Actually, that would make a better feature movie than this. Now this is the perfect title for a movie on this list, right? Released back in 2008 in Thailand, Coming Soon is another horror thriller that uses the location of a cinema as the backdrop for its story, which is about an advanced screening of a hot new horror film, Revengeful Spirit, that's based on a horrific and gruesome true story. Well, true story within the movie world. Following on from the piracy theme of the first example, the main character in this film, Shane, who works at the cinema, is in debt. In order to make some money, he agrees to film a pirate copy of the movie in the hopes to make enough cash back to buy his girlfriend's watch. But the film has a special kind of element, in where whomever watches it ends up in the film dead. Now Shane needs to find the origins of the film and satisfy the spirit within before it starts to kill the sold-out audience set to watch it on opening night. So the movie ends up being a living product, adding souls to its print. I suppose this means it's never the same movie twice, right? No need to make a sequel, although a real missed opportunity to maximize profits on behalf of the filmmaker there. One thing that I was the most curious about, does the whole soul-stealing element work only if you watch it in the cinema? Or will it also work if you watch the bootleg DVD? Unlike Admission by Guts, only parts of this movie is set in the cinema, but what is set in it are the important bits. Check this one out. Some great effects and an interesting storyline that plays on Shane's recovering drug addiction and paranoia to build its storyline. Creepy title. It just goes straight for the jugular. You know what it's going to be about right away. A dark cinema. It's also a very interesting film, hailing from a place you don't expect a movie to come from. Burma. Now, Burma has a very interesting history when it comes to horror cinema, which one day I hope to cover. But in the meantime, one of their many horror films is this spooky chiller set in an abandoned rural cinema. 4 bright-eyed young friends win a private grant to put on a film festival showcasing some classic films. They select a closed and run-down cinema located just outside a medium-sized village and get to work cleaning it up and preparing it for the screening of their selected movies. Except the cinema has a bit of a backstory as to why it was shut, having something to do with a few tragic incidents that occurred both during its renovation and a fire set by rival cinema operators in the area. This means there are ghosts living in the cinema that are ready to protect their territory. A groundskeeper who lives on the site has a connection to the tragic incidents of the past, and a mysterious Indian woman, who also speaks English, seems to have the key to settling these spooky spirits. The movie is an interesting blend of Burmese, English, and an Indian dialect, and similar to Indian cinema, it contains anti-smoking warnings on the screen whenever a character decides to light one up. Hardened horror lovers probably won't give this title a second glance, but the curious among you should definitely check it out. While there is an overuse of green screening for all the outdoor scenes, and the exterior of the cinema is clearly CGI, the makeup and practical effects show signs of a fledgling industry that wants to play with the big boys of Asian horror cinema. Back to China we go for another cinema-based movie. In fact, the next 3 titles are all from China, so strap in as we go through them. This one is set in Thailand, and is about a very possessive and demanding woman, her sister, and her ex-boyfriend, which is now her sister's current boyfriend. Are you confused yet? Well, hold on, because it gets worse. The sister and boyfriend travel to Thailand with a handful of other Chinese tourists to visit the sites. The boyfriend is also conveniently a tour guide, and one of the locations he takes everyone to is a haunted abandoned theatre where some terrible ghosts live. They watch a movie on the screen, the contents of which seem to be specific to the viewer, and then some bad things happen to most of them. But this is a Chinese movie, and there are yet more twists and turns for the hapless viewer. As I said, strap yourself in for this one. The element of the cinema is used as a catalyst to show the characters something in their past that led them to Thailand and their current predicament. The ideas here are clever, and if this was anything other than Chinese, then perhaps it could have been something decent. But even if for a brief time in the film, there are some cool ghosts here. The first of the 2 unrelated haunted cinema movies from China takes us to a, surprise surprise, midnight screening of a horror film at a cinema. Honestly, this plotline is such a cop-out, but worth noting this film came out before Admission by Guts, so that one copied this. What we have here is a group of filmmakers and actors who decide to honour the memory of an actress who died on the set of their film by organising a special midnight screening of their completed movie in a local cinema. They do this hoping that the strange curse following them will go away. Except, wouldn't you know it, it just gets worse and worse for them. Most of this movie is set in a rather large cinema hall, but again, what I find interesting about this is that the handful of people there to watch it seem to have zero interest in actually watching the film, constantly leaving the hall. 2 of them even leave to hook up in another hall. And in typically Chinese fashion, this turns into a thriller, and a rather poor one at that. The voice dubbing, manufactured jump scares, and illogical nature of the story provide the audience with a rather negative overall experience, but at least this film fits our criteria. As if one haunted cinema movie wasn't enough, then 2 years later, Film Moon, the producers of the film, decided to pop out a sequel, this time ditching the article word "the" from the title. Seemingly, this sequel appears to be filmed in the same location as the first movie, but the storyline would beg to differ. Unrelated, the plot here revolves around a newly constructed cinema, or perhaps it was just renovated, not too sure, hosting a special midnight screening of a new horror movie for a very selected audience of horrible teenagers. To add to the mystery, the organizer of the session is unknown, only using the construction manager, played by Film Moon screen queen Abby Yin, who's been in a lot of terrible Chinese horror movies, as the go-between. During the screening of the film, and yet another example of people constantly leaving the movie during the screening, a gas is released that knocks everyone out. When they awake, they are tied to their chairs, a mysterious masked figure before them explaining the reasons why everything is happening. There is a lot of mental gymnastics in this film to try and work out what's going on. There is a subplot around another construction site where 2 jade bracelets are found, resulting in the murder of one of the tradesmen working on the site and the seeking of revenge for his death. The movie ends with the famous rubber mask, everyone dressing up as a ghost ending. Trust me, I didn't spoil the movie for you, I actually saved you 85 minutes. Like the previous haunted cinema film, the cinema used in the movie is modern and large, and appears to be just your average megaplex cinema complex, which boomed in popularity in China in the mid-2010s as their film industry rose from strength to strength in a rapid space of time. To the point now where China is the second largest box office industry in the world, second to America, with a slight anomaly occurring during the COVID shutdown of 2020, where China was on top due to the mass closures of cinemas in the US. Japan's first entry in this video is this super low budget B-grade movie that was created for the sole purpose of promoting the career of Japanese AV star Erika Momotani. What this means is that anything to do with the plot that involves the cinema, which is something to do with ghosts that haunt an abandoned movie theatre, plays second fiddle to the handful of sex scenes used to show off Erika's many talents. She plays Yukiko, who is part of a movie study group who travels to the cinema in the hopes of filming the ghost who supposedly lives there. There is plenty of evidence that the ghost exists, with it frequently caught on film, and in between both boys' successful attempt at sleeping with Yukiko at various points in the film, they break into the cinema and capture their own evidence. Yukiko then watches an old movie apparently featuring the actress who turned into a ghost, and then strange things start to happen to her. One of the good things about the movie, other than the nudity, is that it's rather short, coming in at just under 70 minutes. However, it is extremely hard to find and doesn't have English subtitles, so think of this as more of a low-budget curiosity and not a serious title you should be hunting for. Although, if I am being honest, it's exactly the kind of horror movie I would love to make. Now this is more like it. Probably the best title on the list is this Indonesian slasher with plenty of gore that's set entirely in the cinema, with just some brief shots outside of it to develop the story. Yet another movie set during a midnight screening. This one is a little different. A small cinema chain has managed to secure the hottest new horror film. However, attendances have been really poor. Just as they're about to close the cinema for the evening due to no ticket sales, a handful of different people turn up. A shady-looking businessman, a horny couple, and a mysterious guy. The horror movie they're there to watch is a dramatization of a true story within the movie world about a boy who kills his parents after suffering some abuse. One of the members of the audience goes missing, blood is discovered, and a crazed person wearing a mask seems to have murder on his mind. Slowly the story unravels and the true nature of the audience members are revealed. And I don't want to spoil what happens in this film because it might not be the best horror movie ever, but it is one of the better movies on this list and nice to see a slasher title amongst the usual curse and ghost films. Just a warning for those who are hunting this film to watch, there is a censored print floating around that tones down some of the gore and violence. Okay, so this one barely qualifies, but stick with me as I explain why I added it to the list. This interesting ghost revenge movie from China is about a filmmaker who wants to make a movie in a rundown theatre, which has a strong connection to when he was a younger child. He casts an up-and-coming hot actress played by Ruby Lin, but during the shooting of the film, strange incidents keep occurring, causing the death of some of the cast and crew. We find out that a troupe of acrobatic performers all perished in a fire in the change room of the theatre, and their ghosts now haunt the location, scaring out anyone who dares to enter. So I hear you, where is the whole cinema aspect of the film? Towards the end of the film, when the movie is completed and ready to be shown, a private screening of the film is arranged in the theatre where they shot the movie. Thus, what we have here is not only a theatre, but also a cinema. Quite a multi-purpose location. The scene in question isn't overly long, but it ends up being a very important scene in the film as it leads to the grand finale. As for the film itself, it's not too bad. We reviewed this and found it entertaining enough, but with a lot of issues, including the fact that it has to conform to Chinese standards. There are some great effects though. Well, what do we have here? It is a found footage style film, or in this case, a point of view style film, hence the title, from famed Japanese director Norio Tsuruta. Just like the previous example, it's only the end of the film that's set in a cinema, but unlike the previous film, the impact of the cinema scene is far stronger in the movie's storyline. This is a ghost movie about two idols who watch a cursed DVD, only to find that it's unleashed a spirit around them. One of the girls, Haruna, recognizes the location of the video as her old high school, and alongside her co-host Mirai and their manager and assistants, they head to the school with the hopes of finding out more about the spirits. Along with the help of a psychic, they hope to work out a way to satisfy the spirit and help it move on out of the human world. I have to hand it to Norio. There are a few creepy scenes in this otherwise average film, including when the assistant disappears when she enters the girls' bathroom at the high school. However, I'm not a fan of these types of films where characters endlessly record everything they do, seemingly to the point where camera placements feel very unnatural, such as when they are cowering in the classroom, hiding from the ghosts, and the camera is just there, still recording, but framed in such a useful position. The idea of the movie is that the girl's manager is recording their experience with the ghost to turn it into a feature movie that will be shown in cinemas. Until we get to the scene in the cinema at the end of the film, everything we watch is the actual movie itself. Once we get to the cinema though, the movie has an additional scene where a few static cameras are set up in the empty hall to catch the girls' reaction to their film. It's here, in the cinema, where more ghosts are unleashed, including one handy spirit who seems to be capable enough to use one of the video cameras. In all, it's not a bad film if you can stomach the increasingly overused style. True to its nature, it doesn't have any music, but I feel that there was a missed opportunity to show more edits in the film by switching to the different camera feeds, as it is clear in every scene there's more than one camera filming the action. Outdoor cinemas are still counted, and this one is technically set in an outdoor movie screening, so I'm going to count this one. This 2007 Thai film, also known as just The Screen, tells the story of a group of movie enthusiasts, led by a doctor and his nurse girlfriend, who want to track down a film that was screened in a remote outdoor location near a Buddhist temple. The story goes that the film was screened 18 years prior to an audience of no one, and after the screening, the men who produced the session all mysteriously disappear. They track down the film and try to replicate the same situation, except that seems to anger the original spirits, turning the doctor a little crazy. This movie's a bit of a slow burn, as it errs more on the side of drama thriller than pure horror. But there are some great spooks to be had here, and some great ghost makeup effects too. The subplot around the nurse girlfriend and her suicidal tendencies take up more of the film than they should, at times pushing the whole concept of the movie back a little while it's explored. Thankfully, it's not just the outdoor cinema that makes up the cinema component of the film, but there are a few scenes set in an actual indoor cinema, where they first watch the film which unleashes the spirit after them. This is one of those early 2000s Thai horror film that no one ever really speaks about, so I'm hoping that with its addition on this list, it might spark a few of you to hunt it down and watch it. And finally, Korea enters this list with their one and only entry, that I could find anyway. Another movie we reviewed separately on this channel, and yet another movie about a filmmaker wanting to make a horror film. Warning, Do Not Play tells the story of the unlikable Mi Jung, a filmmaker with writer's block who hears about a short film that caused half of its audience to leave the cinema in fear and another member to die of a heart attack. Of course, she wants to find the film to see what all the hype's about. The short film ends up being a behind-the-scenes clip about a film crew who investigate a small haunted cinema where the ghost of a dead actress resides. Well, considering some of the other titles in this video, it sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? The ghost of the dead actress still lives in the basement of the cinema, where she finishes off anyone who dares to enter her domain. When Mi Jung finds the cinema in question, she comes face to face with the ghost. Unfortunately for us, Mi Jung wins that battle. In this film, the location of the cinema plays a very important part in the movie. It's where the original film that Mi Jung wants to find is set in, which means that we have scenes of the film crew in the cinema meeting the ghost, and of course, the deaths. And the finale of the movie is set in this cinema as well, So as you can see, it plays a very important part of this title. As for the movie itself, well, I found Mi Jung a pretty horrible character with a real lack of humanity, which made the film a little hard to get into, but the overall creepy and spooky style of the film has a very much Korean feel to it. So if you like Korean cinema, this might be one you enjoy. We hope you enjoyed our video about Asian horror movies set in cinemas. Check out some of our other themed videos, including a series on the banned in Asian horror movies, a look at all the Asian versus horror movies, and our series looking at the creepy elements in Asian horror. Press the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more Asian horror movie content, and we'll see you next time.